Echelon is brought to you by Deloitte for innovative thinking and thorough strategic planning. Turn to Deloitte. Well, our guest in Upper Echelon this week is Justin Williamson, Chief Executive of Foodcorp, the third largest food company in South Africa, and Justin, one that most people don't know too much about.
Yeah, Hilton, we've been private for many years now. We used to be part of the Melbeck Group until it was delisted in 1998, when Ethos primarily drove a private equity transaction. And since then, it's really been in private equity hands. So apart from our brands being visible to some of our consumers, the corporate brand has been relatively quiet, and we have not made great attempts over those years to promote it, because we felt promoting our brands was where our money would be better spent.
Just looking at some of those brands that many South Africans would be very familiar with. Yum Yum Peanut Butter, Nola Mayonnaise, Bobtail, Pyman's Pies. It's hard to eat a garage pie these days without it being a Pyman's Pie.
Yeah, we sell a lot of pies. We produce over 500,000 pies a day. And if you think we have around about a third of the market, that means South Africa eats 1.5 million pies a day. A statistic not many people would find easily to believe. We're big players in the pet food market as well. We're the largest producer of pet food in South Africa, way bigger than any of the other internationals. And our Omar rusks are obviously legendary and have been around for about 70 or 80 years. And yeah, in the other sectors, we have pretty dominant market shares in most of the products we produce and the space in which we play. Yeah.
You also distribute Weber products in the country.
Yeah, that came about through the acquisition of the First Lifestyle Group. They used to, at one point in time, have quite a leisure part of their business, and they had still retained the Weber agency when we acquired them, and we have continued with that. Obviously, it's an iconic brand. It's an international brand. The product is simply hard. There's nothing that comes close to the quality of the product, and we thoroughly enjoy having such a quality brand in our brand portfolio.
Beyond the kind of food products and obviously Weber, you're also involved in prepared foods, a large supplier there of prepared foods to Woolies.
Yeah, we're the largest supplier in South Africa of prepared foods to Woolworths. We do an enormous amount of individual SKUs with them. We supply close to R1 billion worth of food a year to Woolies. In the sandwich category, in the baking category, cakes, we do all their dairy desserts nationally, muffins, a variety of different things. It's been a very good relationship. Woolworths is a wonderful customer, and we have an extremely good relationship with them, and they have continued to perform extremely well despite the tough economic conditions. I think the LSM 9 and 10, which is their target market, has been less affected by the many crises that are going on in the world and in our country today.
Justin, speaking of crises, a couple of weeks ago, the big horse meat scandal in Britain. Here in South Africa, evidence of some donkey meat found in certain meat products. Being a chief executive of a food company, of a company that prepares a lot of food, waking up to that kind of news, I'm guessing, is not great.
No, I mean, it's absolutely shocking. I find it hard to believe that these reputable companies in Europe, reputable names, have been sucked into this. We have instituted a variety of tests on all our products, as is every other manufacturer in South Africa that uses meat products. Consequently, there's quite a queue of people joining the queue at these different laboratories to do the appropriate testing. We have already, in conjunction with Woolworths, completed all the Woolworths analyses, and it's absolutely perfect there. Fortunately, in most of our businesses, we use full muscle cuts. And it's obviously you can identify the muscle cut. It's when you get into minced products that there's more risk that something else has been added to it. However, I think South Africa also isn't big on alternative forms of protein other than beef, lamb, and chicken, and obviously pigs. So there's not a high donkey population, or there's not a high horse population, and it's not common practice in South Africa for those types of animals to be culled for human consumption at all, as opposed to in Europe. There seems to be a reasonable prevalence of that taking place, and I think that's how they've got mixed up into the other categories.
Justin, how's trading been in the market? You spoke earlier about the resilience of those LSM 9 and 10 consumers with regards to specifically Woolworths. Broadly, we obviously see numbers from Tiger and from Pioneer as they report to the market. Things looking quite tough out there.
It's extremely tough. Make no mistake. We had a very good run until the end of December, and January and February has been markedly more difficult to trade in. I think the consumer simply has no money at the moment, and I think we are very reflective of what the real average South African is about, because we supply products from LSM1 right through to LSM9 and 10. And there has been a noticeable lack of funds available. I think it was supported by the fact that I saw unsecured loans were down last month, and I think people had been living on borrowed money more and more. Right down to milling, the SAGES milling numbers in South Africa for wheat last month were 12% lower than a year ago. Now, wheat is such a basic product, going in primarily, obviously, to produce flour and primarily into bread. So if people aren't buying bread, you know that we have a problem. We've also seen, for example, in the bread game, that people are moving to a 600-gram loaf from a 700-gram loaf simply because the price point, being where it is, makes it unaffordable. And it's very, very challenging thing for us as manufacturers. It's not the manufacturers are making a great deal of money out of bread. It's simply the price of wheat that has gone through the roof, coupled with enormous fuel prices. Fuel and wheat are the two biggest costs when you produce a loaf of bread. And if you consider the logistics involved in getting bread out to various suppliers, you're driving between 10 and 15-ton trucks all over the country every day, consuming inordinate amounts of fuel, and that is really, really affecting the whole bread market dramatically.
Late last year, the announcement of a deal by Rainbow Chicken to buy 76% of your business, a 1 billion rand plus deal, and ultimately Remgro, being the controlling shareholder of Rainbow Chicken, will be a majority shareholder in Foodcorp. They've had their eye on your business for quite some time.
Yeah, when Pomotsi looked at exiting the business a couple of years ago, they had a look in, and they felt, as I understand it, I can't speak for them, but they felt with the uncertainty in the world at that point in time, they should just batten down the hatches and wait to see what happens. That being the case, when our British shareholder called Blue Bay, who owns 45% of the company, wished to exit the business recently, late last year, they showed an interest again. And as a management team of Foodcorp, we are absolutely delighted with the transaction that's taken place with Rainbow, with Remgro as their primary shareholder.
Presumably some big plans and a number of synergies, given that Rainbow is involved in the food business already.
Yeah, yes and no. We don't know what they are fully yet. We have been cognizant of the fact that the Competition Commission has not given approval yet. We don't believe there are any obstacles to it. However, it is a large merger notification, and that does take time. And secondly, we lodged it only in late November, and with the Christmas period coming on immediately following the lodging, they are currently working on it right now. We've had a few meetings with Comcom, and at this point in time, we do not foresee any challenges. So I think once that's behind us, we'll be happy to engage in more detailed discussions, but I think it would be inappropriate to do so beforehand.
Just in terms of the transaction, employees also benefiting. There is an employee empowerment trust which owns 22.5% of the business, and they would exit in this deal.
Yes. It's one thing having empowerment shareholders, which give you a lot of credence and legitimacy. However, I think people want to own shares to ultimately make money out of them. And that's a bit of a dichotomy, because suddenly you pay your staff out for their shares and then you don't have black shareholders, and then you're seen in a different light. However, the good news is I have 5,000 full-time staff, 5,129 to be exact, and they will be sharing in approximately 337 million rand. I've got guys who drive forklifts who will be getting 250 to 300,000. I've got guys doing very menial work who will be getting in excess of 50 or 60,000 rand. And I just think it's the most fantastic illustration of what empowerment can be. I've always been a proponent of empowering your staff rather than external investors, because they're the people who make the products and should stand to gain the most from their efforts. And in this case, that's been done. It's a wonderful deal, I think. Absolutely fantastic.
Just looking back a couple of years, you did consider coming back to the market in 2008. Obviously, the timing was horrendously wrong there. I'm guessing that led you to close up the files and put them away.
Yeah, so I think for us, and certainly for me, my personal view was the last option would always be an IPO again for Foodcorp. I felt there were better options elsewhere, and we anticipated either an international private equity fund becoming a future shareholder in Foodcorp, or alternatively a trade buyer from within the South African environment. So that's why we find our new home with Rainbow and Remgro absolutely wonderful, because it represents a South African as opposed to an international investor. An advantage of the deals that Foodcorp is now fully South African owned again, which I think is a plus. And we with an iconic investor in the form of Remgro.
Just to look back at your career, a decade ago you were acting chief executive at AXA, and before that chief financial officer of AXA, a chartered accountant by training. Looking at that career, that part of your career at the Airports Company of South Africa, it must be amazing to see the progress made from the early 90s when AXA was turned into a private company, when the airports were pretty much inherited by AXA, to today where we have some of the most beautiful airports in the world.
Yeah, I mean, my time at AXA I absolutely loved. It's got a real heartbeat, that whole aeronautical industry, far more so than the FMCG industry, and probably all my FMCG colleagues will whinge about me saying that. But the Airports Company was enormous fun. Dirk Ackerman was the CEO for most of my tenure, and then he left and I took over from him for a short while as the acting CEO. But we were involved in the privatization process. We went through the whole sale process to Aeroporti de Roma, which subsequently government bought their shares back. We got involved in really rejigging the entire financial model to bring in more retail and property revenues, and I think we were quite successful in that. Probably some of the most fun years of my life was working for AXA. Worked very, very hard there. It's probably the hardest we ever worked, and I think we delivered some nice stuff. And it's beautiful what the team, Montla, who took over, has done. I know she's recently left the business, but during her tenure, I mean, the advancement on all the facilities and terminals and that, and La Mercy, for example, was just fantastic. Very proud of it. Yeah.
Justin, aside from work, outside work, a keen mountain climber. You've climbed 5 fairly significant mountains, 4 of the 7 summits. Still Everest to go.
No. Let's not get carried away. Everest is for the real diehards. I do this because I enjoy it. My next one will probably be McKinley in Alaska, but I just love being out there. I find it brings a balance to my life. It's quite hard out there. It's tough. It's cold. You carry your own stuff around, and it's a very different environment to my average daily life in Johannesburg. So for me, it's a form of release and an enormous sense of enjoyment out there. Yeah.
Justin, what keeps you awake at night?
Well,
if anything.
Yeah, quite a few. I'm not a good sleeper. I think where we sit at the moment, I think South Africa is in a fairly tenuous position at the moment. I think it's a time for strong leadership from government to be shown, and I think that would bring about more confidence. I don't think business is confident at the moment across all spheres, and I think with some strong leadership, this country has such potential that it's not really being released at the moment. I don't see it in that way. There's not a lot that needs to be done. There's simple things need to be done well, and if we are able to achieve some of those things through, as I say, it cannot happen without strong leadership, and we should be bold and we should be brave, rather than trying to take the middle ground most of the time. So I do worry about jobs in this country. I worry about our economy. I worry about our exchange rate. Those who propose a weak rand, I think, are completely misled. My view is we should have a strong rand. A strong rand benefits the poor instantly. A weak rand may benefit manufacturers in the long term, but at the expense of the poor. Every time the rand depreciates, the price of bread goes up, and I can't see the logic in that. There are too many people who aren't being accommodated. I said to somebody the other day, we should have a minister of the unemployed, in my view, in this country, because that's a bigger constituency almost now than the minister of the employed, or minister of labour. But it's not insurmountable problems at all. But I think that's probably what keeps me awake more than anything. It's just the precarious nature of where we are as a nation at the moment.
Final question, and I ask all our guests in the upper echelon this question: what motivates you?
Not money, that's for sure. I think trying to do things well. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I love my team. I work strongly for my team. I see myself as my role is to make them successful, and I think that's probably really it. I like to do things well. I like to do things properly. I always try and make sure I understand the difference between good and bad and right and wrong. I always try and do what's right, not what's good. That costs you every now and again, but in the long run you'll sleep far better with that.
Justin Williamson is Chief Executive of Foodcorp, and Upper Echelon was brought to you by Deloitte for innovative thinking and thorough strategic planning. Turn to Deloitte.